worship His holy name. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I worship Your holy name. You're rich in love and You're slow to anger. Your name is great and Your heart is kind. For all Your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before. Oh my soul, I worship Your holy name. And on that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come, still my soul will sing Your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before. Oh my soul, I worship Your holy name. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before. Oh my soul, I worship Your holy name. I worship Your holy name. I worship Your holy name. Precious cornerstone, sure foundation, You are faithful to the end. We are waiting on You, Jesus. We believe You're all to us. Only Son of God, sent from heaven, hope and mercy at the cross. You are everything, You're the promise. Jesus, You are all to us. Let the glory of Your name be the passion of the church. Let the righteousness of God be a holy flame that burns. Let the saving love of Christ be the measure of our lives. We believe You're all to us. When this passing world is over, we will see You face to face, and forever we will worship Jesus. You are all to us. Let the glory of Your name be the passion of the church. Let the righteousness of God be a holy flame that burns. Let the saving love of Christ be the measure of our lives. We believe You're all to us. You're all to persuade us now. We are your church. We need your power in us. We seek your kingdom first. We hunger and we thirst. Refuse to waste our lives, for you're our joy and prize. To see the captives' hearts release, the hurt, the sick, the poor at peace. We lay down our lives for heaven's cause. We are your church. We pray, revive this earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. We pray. Unleash your kingdom's power, reaching the near and far. No force of hell can stop your beauty changing hearts. You made us for much more than this. Awake the kingdom seed in us. Fill us with the strength and love of Christ. We are your church. We are the hope on earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. We pray. You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, in ocean's deep. My faith will stand. I will call your name. Keep my eyes over the way. Resting in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine. Oh, your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you never fail, and you won't start now. I will call your name. Keep my eyes over the way. Resting in your embrace.
So anyway, and then they've got a fire station, state land and stuff, so it's everything. It's like my dad's always.
I was like, it's always wearing black.
And actually, they always have like one person that they collect everything. It always was like, it was doing it.
Mine's easier to see. He's from here now, right?
I think it'd be great. I think it'd be great if they show up tomorrow and Michael walks in and see if they recognize. Is this all right? Now we gotta behave.
Some of those times, you know, like you come, you know, you're oh, sorry, I missed the call.
I remember the same.
Yeah. At the shop that you guys are building,
Nope, not really.
Oh, that's that reminds me. This is I'm like, they're streaming this.
so then we were coming, I was coming.
So Tim's roommate is Cindy's nephew. So they went to her spot. So Cindy gave him a job. But she needed help. Yeah, they were kind of bummed.
I wanted to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedules to spend a Friday evening with us and the weekend. This means bring the speakers in. Thanks, you. And the weekend. We were able to partake in the Wild Marriage Seminar when Barry was in Billings back this summer, and we just thought that it was so beneficial that we wanted to see if we could bless more lives, more marriages by bringing him back to Montana, and we're thankful that he was willing to to travel in the middle of winter and bring his lovely wife Dina along as well. So we're appreciative of that. Barry England serves as a family minister at the West 7th Church of Christ. He provides marriage and family counseling, seminars, classes with special emphasis days for churches desiring to give emphasis to marriage and the family. Barry's a graduate of Mars Hill Bible School in Florence, Alabama. He holds degrees from Freed-Hardeman University, University of South Alabama, and the University of Memphis. He's married to Tina, who assists with this ministry and enjoys teaching 2nd grade at Columbia Academy. They have 2 children, Carter and Haley. Barry's worked for churches in Mobile, Alabama, Dyer, Tennessee, and Wildersville, Tennessee. He was an administrator and faculty member for both Faulkner University and Freed-Hardeman University and served as president of Columbia Academy. He continues as a faculty member at Freed-Hardeman University. One other thing to keep in mind, if you know people that weren't able to make it, that would like to participate, we are streaming this live. So just go to the Bozeman Church of Christ website and shoot them a text. And
YouTube channel. Bozeman Church of Christ YouTube channel.
Bozeman Church of Christ YouTube channel. And for those of you that are already streaming, hello. We're thankful that you were able to join us as well. So, without further ado, Barry England.
Good evening. Are you all the unlucky ones who had to sit on the front row? Is that the way that worked? I'll try not to crowd you. It's good to see you. It's good to be here. It's a great number. I didn't know what to expect. If it were this cold and snow on the ground in Tennessee, we wouldn't be able to get people out of their houses on Friday night. In fact, it might be 80 degrees in April, and we would have a hard time getting them out on Friday night. So thank you for coming and for being a part of this. I hope that it will be helpful, and believe that it will be. I see a few of the men who came in kind of favoring one of their arms where the wife twisted it behind your back to get you to come. But nevertheless, I'm glad you're here. This is intended to be helpful, but also enjoyable. I'm a pretty informal person, and so I enjoy meeting people and enjoy these events, and I hope that it won't be too painful to you men, and I'll try to help to make it that way. Let me tell you a little bit about where we're going. And Quentin, I think I just found it, so I had lost the clip on the mic earlier. And by the way, let me say to those who are streaming, thank you for joining in tonight. I wish that I could see you and know who's on the other end. We are going to do some different things. We will start with some fun as we begin in just a minute or two. One of the things that we'll do, in fact, one of the things that we're doing more than I have done before, in fact, more than we did at Billings, will be some, in fact, actually 4 different exercises where you all go and spend a few minutes talking and answering some questions for the purpose of trying to take some of what we'll talk about and put it in your marriages. And so I hope that will be helpful to you. Well, thanks for being here. It's always good to meet new people. Barry, I'll say, came in, and it was nice for me to find somebody that talked like me, first of all. And secondly, it was nice to find somebody whose best friend growing up is someone who's very close to me. In fact, we were at his friend's wedding that he was the best man for many years ago, because Kenny was a good friend of ours. And so just about anywhere you go, when you especially are at Freed-Hardeman as long as I was, you have people all over the world, and you cross paths and run into them. So great to meet you all. Well, let's get going. Let's have some fun as we begin tonight. And Quentin has done a great job in helping make sure our technology works, and you can go ahead and get ahead of me. If a man is in the forest and there isn't a woman around, is he still wrong? and you all are going to have to laugh occasionally to make me feel like it was worth trying some of these, so help me. Any man should forget his mistakes. There's no reason for two people to have to remember the same thing. A husband said to his wife, "No, I don't hate your relatives. In fact, I like your mother-in-law better than I like mine." I always use that one to determine how sharp the audience is. You all so far are about average. I found this one the other day. Struggling to get your wife's attention? Just sit down and look comfortable. That's true, isn't it? The men are going, "Yes, thank you." That's kind of the way that feels sometimes. And if you aren't careful, how to start a fight. In fact, Tina has not seen these. What's on the TV? Dust. Probably not a good answer to the question. So Tina and I have a farm. We have England and Son Farm in Mount Pleasant, Tennessee. We raise registered Hereford cattle and cut a lot of hay. I love cutting hay, and thought I cut a lot of hay until a few years ago when we went to Lewistown, and I did actually something similar in Lewistown, and went out and helped one of the ranchers after the Saturday session. And when I got on his swather to cut hay, all of a sudden I didn't feel nearly as big as I do when I'm at home. Hay fields out here are a little bigger than hay fields in Tennessee. But I like this next one. A good wife brings balance to a man's life. I don't know if that's politically correct or not, but nevertheless. And this one kind of fits for the day. We are gathered here today on this mountain in a foreign country at great expense to family and friends to pretend that your union is too special for a neighborhood church. So weddings have gotten out of sight, both financially and in other ways, right? And these getaway weddings are kind of being poked at here. Well, let's turn a little more serious for these next two or three. It is the case that couples who make it aren't the ones who never had a reason to get divorced. They are simply the ones who decided early on that their commitment to each other was always going to be bigger than their differences and their flaws. And in fact, one of the things I'll talk about is how wow marriages are not marriages who did not have trouble, who did not have challenges, who did not have issues. And we're very quickly going to get into looking at how marriage is hard, and we have to learn how to do it. And you'll hear me say often in different ways that it is those couples who, as they wade into difficulties, decide that they don't want to be in a difficult place, and they stop and figure out what is hard and how to fix it, and then they basically fix it, reboot, and move on better than before. Now, I think that's different from what we like to think, because what we like to think is for Christian couples who are doing it God's way, they don't have trouble. They have a wow marriage from the beginning, and things are just good from the beginning. And because they are such Christian people, they don't have issues. Well, I guess idealistically that would be good, but I just don't think that's real. Because we have never been married before. Most of us, at least when we got married the first time. I'll even say it that way. And so we're trying to learn a relationship that involves a lot of different aspects, and we have no experience in that relationship except for dating and other relationships, but we all know that those are different. I do a lot of premarital counseling, and I tell people that premarital counseling is like trying to teach a 5-year-old the tax code. Now think about that, and think about how when you got married, you thought you knew what you were getting into, and you thought you knew each other, and you thought this was going to be so easy. But as life progressed, all of a sudden we learned that there are difficulties in this relationship that we had no idea would be as difficult as they were. And depending on at what age you married and whether or not you had many siblings, no siblings, all of these pieces of the puzzle, it becomes very tricky. Well, I'll try not to get too bogged down. A perfect marriage is just two imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other. And so I begin with these slides because I want you to feel like if you all, even right now, are at a difficult place, congratulations, you're normal. If you're having challenges and issues, it's okay. Let's figure it out. And that's why we're here, to help you figure those out and to help those who are doing pretty well to do it better. And so this is where we're going today and tonight and tomorrow. We're going to begin after the topics with how marriages drift into coexistence. And I'll define that and show you what I mean by that. Then, the second session tonight, we're going to talk about being married to my best friend, to your best friend. What it means to have a best friend relationship and how important that is. First thing in the morning, we're going to talk about communicating and fulfilling each other's needs. Then also in the morning, honesty, trust, transparency, openness. We'll go then to understanding and accepting that my spouse is different from me. And how do we handle those differences? We'll talk about how to differ, how to argue, how to deal with conflict, because that's a part of marriage, and especially how to compromise. And then the last thing we'll look at tomorrow afternoon is protecting our marriage and putting God in the center of our marriages so that we do marriage God's way. It is the case that in life, the better job we do keeping God where He needs to be, the better things fall into place. And sometimes we drift away, and sometimes we pay the price for it. And then Sunday, 2 different lessons on parenting. And the title is For the Purpose of Grabbing Your Attention. No, I do not believe parenting is a piece of cake. I thought it was a piece of cake before we had children. And now that we have grandchildren and our children have turned out so well, yeah, we think no, we don't. It is not at all easy, and we'll talk about that on Sunday. So let's talk about the marriage process. We can spot a good marriage a long way off. And I want to ask a question and just think about this. What couple do you know, having been married more than 5 years, that you think has the wow marriage? Think about who that might be. Tina and I sat on the airplane from Denver here yesterday, and there was a 30-year-old female who sat by me, and so toward the end of the flight, we started talking some, and she said, what are you doing? I said, going to Bozeman. She said, why? I said, we're doing a marriage seminar in Bozeman. First thing she said was, oh, my grandparents were married 61 years, and boy, they loved each other. Well, I love hearing that. And so think about what couple, or maybe 2 or 3 couples that you know of, that when you look at them, you go, wow, they love each other. They have that look still when they look at each other. He would die for her. She would die for him. That couple that makes you think, I would love to have that in our later years. Well, the reason those couples stand out is because they are very much the minority, not the majority. They are, aren't they? And when you find that wow couple, you realize they've done something very well. What stands out? What do you notice? what is obvious? And why do we take a second look when we see a couple on up in years walking down the sidewalk holding hands? We do, don't we? We notice that. And we start asking, maybe in our minds, just got married, getting over a fight. You know, what's going on here? Why? Because again, it's the minority, not the majority. Well, so let's begin looking at this process. When marriages begin, I'm sure each of us thought ours will be different. Our marriage will be so good that it's going to be unlike all these ho-hum marriages. We think we can handle anything. Our love will never die. Nothing will ever come between us. And on that wedding day, this is the way we felt. Nervous, butterflies, but ours is going to be so very different. However, over time, changes start to take place. Work with me here. Do you see my point? There's a little difference in how satisfied with life in general this couple looks when compared with the other, right? Tina, I'm worried they're already going to sleep on me, I think. If we grow old together, what will our front porch scene look like? What do you think? Will it look like this? Or will it look like this? Now, my guess is that couple has been married 50 years, love each other deeply, and every time I show this picture, I fear that somebody's going to go, Grandma! That hasn't happened yet. Got it off the internet, as we do. Have no idea who this couple is. But they represent how we so often grow into coexisting ways, and we lose a lot of that sweetness, a lot of that sometimes unselfishness, a lot of that great appreciation for. And again, I expect they have that. I hope so. But I think it made my point. So, if we wind up like this, I wish you all could see what I see. All the men are sitting here going like this, and all the women are going, oh, that's so sweet. All of you are. If you wind up like this or this, we have to make it happen, and most don't. Now, let's see if I can back up. Quentin, back it up for me one slide, if you will. I want to go back to this couple.
Should be a back button on.
Yeah, I know. Okay, it's the bottom. All right, thank you. So, when you look at that couple, what do you think? Help me with this one. What's your first thought when you see them?
Sharing a private joke.
Say it a little louder.
Sharing a private joke.
Okay, so somebody said something funny. What else? Happy?
They understand each other.
They understand each other?
Date night.
Date night? Yeah. Did anybody think, oh, I bet their first spouses passed away and they are newlyweds? Yeah, a couple. That's kind of the first thing I thought. I hate that. I hate that I can't look at them and go, oh, they've been married 50 or 60 years, and they still have that look. They still have it. And in fact, not only do they still have it, it is deeper than ever before. And so my goal during these lessons is to help us to have this feeling in our marriage. And the older we get, the deeper it gets. Well, we have to make it happen. And most don't. Now, what I want to say is, it's one thing for Scott to preach a great sermon and him go back to the back door and everybody go by and tell him how good it is. And what he really wants is for him to bring God's word, and then as everybody goes by to appreciate it, but to go out there and put it in their lives and make a difference. Now, marriage seminars are opportunities for us to spend some time together, for us to see some funny graphics at the beginning, for us to think about some things. And I'll bring this up more in a minute, but I want to plant the seed now, and that is what we're going to be talking about this weekend are things that I don't want you to just think about while you're in here. And the reason for the exercises is to help you realize that if we are going to have a wow marriage, we're going to have to work at it because it's not going to come automatically. Well, I want to talk about what I believe is the normal marriage, the majority marriage. In the normal marriage, life's demands replace the best friend relationship. And we might call that getting away from the honeymoon. We may call that life taking its toll. But what I see happening over and over again is where husband and wife become so consumed in life through the first 5, 6, 7 years especially, that they wind up being so busy, so consumed with what we'll talk about and look at in a minute, that they drift into a place of coexistence. Now, let me say this. I spend most of my working days, when I'm not on the farm at least, which is most of the time, other than in the summer. I spend quite a bit more time on the farm in the summer. But I spend most of my time in the counseling room. And for many years now, I've spent time with hundreds of couples, and I have seen this time and time and time and time again among couples where their marriages are broken, sometimes in crisis. And I also see this in marriages that are doing pretty well. But this getting so busy in life that they slip into coexistence. Well, it is the case that maintaining a marriage is like maintaining an automobile. If we don't work at it, it will not function very well. But what happens in life that takes this relationship, the best friend relationship, away from us? What are the things? First of all, we understand that the newness of the relationship wears off. You know, you're not going to act like and feel like you're on your honeymoon all your married lives. That's not realistic. I'm not going to suggest that you ought to look at each other the same way a year after as you do 2 and 3 days after. That's not realistic. And the newness of the relationship wears off. And especially today, when we live in the most materialistic country in the world, and we have so much, we become so consumed, whether we really intend to or not, with having what our parents had, having more than our parents had, making sure that our kids have more than we did, living easy lives, pursuing our career dreams. And that becomes very big for most of us. And along with that comes all kinds of different dynamics, all kinds of different dimensions, all kinds of different demands and challenges. And careers go a long way in consuming who we are. And I made this one bigger because I think probably nothing changes marriages more than children, right? Sure, that's kind of a no-brainer. Now, we have 2 children. I'll talk some about them. I'll try not to talk too much about them. I won't try very hard not to talk about our grandchildren. But Carter lives in Huntsville, is 33, married to Allison, and they have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we love them. Haley and Will live in Nashville. They have the 3-year-old little girl, Charlie Kate, in the middle. And we had so much joy with our children growing up, from the ballparks to the farm we enjoyed our kids. And we were married 6 years before Carter was born. We tried to get to know each other and play by that rule of don't get married or don't have children too quick. But even though we tried to do things the right way, and even though we enjoyed our children, to say that our marriage changed and life changed when they came along is absolutely an understatement. Children change everything. Financial challenges, materialism, and we change over time. We change over time. The things that you did with your spouse when you were dating are likely, at least some of them, likely things that you're just not interested in anymore. Why? Well, we change. What we're able to do physically changes as years pass. Our interests change. And maybe even what brought us together when we dated has become something that neither of us is interested in anymore. And another thing that happens in marriage is spiritual stagnation, oftentimes. When we get in the ruts of going through the motions, when we get in the place where we are so consumed that we are not working to develop our faith as we ought to. And we'll talk about this more, especially last thing tomorrow. In this last category, I just simply call life's burdens and adversities. And there are so many different ones of these that apply in so many different situations. But as all of these things start working on our marriage or our marriages, what are the results? The results of this best friend, I'll do anything for you, easily able to completely give myself up for you, to the sometimes resentment and frustration stages. What are the results of all these things we talked about? This is big. Men generally turn to hobbies and jobs to determine who they are and what their primary fulfillment in life is or are, fulfillments are. And wives, when there are children, rely on children. And even if they don't rely on children, that's who they become, whom they become. Maternal instinct causes them to go from being a wife, first and foremost, to a mother, first and foremost. Now, God made women this way, and I love with those cattle seeing maternal instinct. It's not only with humans, it's with animals too. And maternal instinct creates a lot of challenges within the marriage. But I want you to look at this again, and I want you to begin thinking about how when children come along, some of the frustration and resentment kicks in. Because when children come along, if you use the terms free time to women, they hit you. Why? There's no such thing. They say things like, all I want to do is go to the bathroom for 5 minutes without somebody tugging on me. Or they say things like, hobbies? What do you mean by that? Are you crazy? Why? Because their lives change that much. But what happens to the men? Well, to the men, they fish less, they golf less, they do their hobbies less, but do they stop? Usually not. And how does that make mom/wife feel? Cheated. It makes her feel like she's being taken advantage of. It makes her feel like she's not having the opportunity to do what dad does. And if that builds and builds and builds, it gets to the point where dad comes in and says something like, John and I are going fishing Saturday, and she thinks, you didn't ask. Sure would be nice if you took the kids and let me I'd just like to go to the grocery store by myself. Did you even ask? Well, just one example of many showing how that when children come along, things begin to change, and it makes it easy for two very separate roles to form, and it makes it easy for resentment and frustration to build. Sometimes, and we're still working on the results of these things coming and stealing our best friend relationship from us. It's often the case that friendship with others become more important than friendship with each other. Why? Because the men are still doing some of their hobbies, but they can't do it with mom anymore. She's at home with little ones. So I'm fishing with, I'm golfing with, and it may be that mom calls her friend who also has a baby and they are doing this. And so you've got friendships forming that instead of being here, now are out here. You with me? Does that make sense? Yeah, sure. It's what happens. This is not a rocket science thing. It's just especially as we look back over kind of what happened, we see that. But see, the subtle thing that's going on here is we have that couple who on the wedding day looked at each other and ours is going to be different. And then now they're out here doing this, kind of living like and acting like everybody else. Now I want to say this. If you're sitting here right now and you're going, oh, that's exactly it. That's what's happened. It may even be that you're sitting here going, that's just kind of how we feel. Oh, don't beat yourself up over it. I'm not here to criticize you for that. I'm here to tell you that's pretty normal. And it is when we realize that this is what's going on and we say, I want to stop and fix it and do something about it. When we fix it and bring it back together, we are better than ever before and better than most everybody else. That's the wow marriage. And that's when we look at the majority of other people that we know who are married who are doing this and we feel sorry for them. We think, oh, if they only knew. If they would only do what we're going to talk about tonight and tomorrow, they could have it too. It's not those who never get to coexistence. And so many times when this happens and the coexistence thing is going on, we become increasingly self-centered and carry grudges. And sometimes we start thinking things like, oh, I wish you were like her husband. I wish you looked at me the way, or I wish you would, he may say to her. And you've got not only coexistence, but you've got hurtful things that are being said and thought. So let's kind of recap. What is the process that I believe most marriages go through in going from the honeymoon to the coexistence? They begin floating on the love cloud. We can live on love. We don't even have to have a lot of money. Just give us a one-bedroom apartment and everything will be fine. To secondly, these distractions that we talk about, bills. What about the traditional family differences? Oh, my mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and great-grandma and great-grandpa and great-great-grandma and great-great, all of our family eats Sunday lunch every Sunday together. We've done that forever. And the other spouse says, we see each other on Christmas and we're okay with that. Well, my mom did the cooking. My dad did the cooking. Or, especially when we used to write checks, my dad paid the bills. My mom paid the bills. Who's in charge of the money? All of these things, sure, they play into it. Career ladder. All these extended family pressures. I keep punching the wrong button, Quentin, I'm sorry. And then children come along. And you remember if you have children and if you don't, and some may be fighting the battle of wanting children and not being able to have that. And I realize how hard it is when I talk about children for you to hear that. And I'm sorry but I have to deal with this because it's such a significant role for a lot of marriages. And when she is expecting, oh, this little bundle of joy is going to be just the greatest blessing in life there has ever been. He will be perfect. She will be perfect. There will never be issues here. Straight A's, no rules. They're just a rule abider. Oh, this is going to be great. And then after a while, are you expecting? I thought either you were getting a piece of lint off of her jacket or you were... So then in these days, the ball games even start earlier. Help with homework, sometimes learning disabilities or other disabilities. In the teenage years, if they live that long, oh wow, who could try to explain to somebody what raising teenagers is going to be like? And then that place of coexistence, where we are in two different worlds, the loss of mutual interest, we have our own jobs or likes. We feel like we would rather talk to coworkers or friends than spouse. And so often frustration, resentment, and the ones I see oftentimes in the counseling room are those who feel like she does. I didn't think we would ever be where we are. And a lot of different things cause that. So, my question as we begin tonight is, do you want a great marriage? Do you really want it? Sure, I think you do, otherwise you would not be here. So how badly do you want it? Now, the guy in the maroon tank top is probably outside of family, my best friend in the world. Rich teaches marketing at Harding and taught for several years at Freed-Hardeman. We became just very close friends. So Rich is a runner. And this particular slide, I think, is him running St. Jude Marathon in Memphis. And he has run a lot of marathons, including the Boston Marathon. And so the last several years, Rich has run in the Arkansas Travelers Trail Running Group, and they run 100-mile runs. 100-mile runs through trails. Unbelievable. Under 24 hours. He's never run one that he did not get within 24 hours, except the one several years ago when he was struck by lightning at mile 60. And I'm not kidding, promise. That awful was not a direct hit, but hit close enough to him that it fried his watch. So he had some electricity going through his body. Threw him down, got himself up. And I asked him, I said, so what'd you do then? Was anybody around? He said, no. And I said, what did you do? And he said, well, all I could do is walk. And I said, how far did you walk? And he said, I walked 12 more miles before I had to quit. Well, that involves a mindset that I don't have. But when Rich moved to Henderson and we began being best friends or good friends, I became very intrigued with how anybody could run the way he does. And I'd say, oh man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. But it didn't say it long. You know why? Because pretty quickly he said, do you? If you really wish that you could run a marathon, I can help you to do that. And I pretty quickly saying to him, I wish that I could do that. Because what he was expecting me to do, if I really wanted to run like Rich, was to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and put the time in on the pavement. And I don't know too many farmers who are marathon runners. And there's a reason for that. And our interests are different. We don't have the time. But I use that to say, most of you nodded, you want the wow marriage. And what I want to tell you is, it's not going to come without effort. It's not going to come without putting energy into it. So how important is it to you? Is it important enough to work at it? To change priorities? To change our schedules? To tell people no? Including children? We'll talk about this one tomorrow. Is it important enough to you to pray about it together? And this one is one that's difficult. And in fact, I'll run with this one just for a minute. It's about time for our break. But one of the difficult things that happen for couples where resentment and frustration and baggage has built up is because when things have built up, every little thing becomes bigger than it ought to be. And I describe it this way to couples quite often. When things have gotten to a bad place, then we have bruises all over us, not literally. But what happens when we have a big old bruise on our arm or our leg? What happens if we have a big bruise on our leg from whatever, and we walk by a piece of furniture and we barely hit the corner of that furniture on that bruise? We overreact to it, don't we? You would have thought somebody hit us with a hammer. Why? Because that bruised area is so sensitive. When couples get to the place where resentment and frustration has built up, their whole bodies symbolically are covered in bruises. And the slightest little tout is overreacted to because of it. Had a 67-year-old husband call me 2 weeks ago, and he said, "I need you to help me." And I said, "Why?" He had just remarried. His wife of many years had passed away a couple of years ago. And he said, "We are fighting about everything." I said, "Give me an example." And he said, "Our last big fight was because when I came in and tore a paper towel off of the roll, I set the paper towel roll down in the wrong place." And he said, "Can you believe that we had such a big argument over something like that?" And I said, "Yeah, I can. Understand completely." Why? Because there are bruises everywhere. And when there are bruises everywhere, the slightest little thing causes you to overreact to them. Now, the reason I introduce that topic here is when we are to that place, and I talk about mudslinging, piles of mud have built up, and one person will grab a handful of mud and sling it, and because there's so many feelings of resentment, it's like there are mud piles everywhere. And so we're just grabbing and slinging, and low-hanging fruit, fistfuls of mud, they're everywhere. It's easy. Is that productive conversation? Is it trying to understand each other? Is it trying to help? No, there's nothing at all helpful about it. All we're doing is slinging mud and tapping bruises and overreacting to it. Now, if you're sitting here tonight or watching online and you're going, "Oh, that's just exactly where we are." Okay, one of the things we've got to do is start chipping away at the baggage. And we've got to back off thumping on the bruises to let them heal. And we've got to get some positive momentum going. Why? Because if we don't do that, the overreacting is going to continue to happen. So, I want to end this session with a quick video. And I'll ask for a comment or two afterwards, and then we'll take our break. So here's an example of the wow marriage, which is what we want to have.
I don't count it a burden, whatever, to have to care for her. I need to do everything. From the moment she gets up to the moment she goes to bed, I do absolutely everything. Clean her teeth, shower, dress, everything. But it's a privilege. I count it a great privilege to care for this one that I've loved all of these years and continue to love. This is the year when we'll celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. Our stories have been a lovely story. I first saw her when she was 8 years old, and her brother became my best friend. And we grew up together, and as we grew up, yeah, she was there. And I knew that she used to stare at me when I was playing footy with her brother and another friend, and when we used to ride bikes, and she kept staring at me, but I wasn't interested. I was 17, she was 16. I saw her dolled up, dressed up, and she had an A-line dress on, and boom, it was gone. She was the one for me then, absolutely. When we first started dating, I used to ride my bike from where I lived to where she was, and that was about 5 kilometers on a Saturday afternoon, because it was the only chance we had to get together. And it was hair wash day for her, and she used a special cream in her hair for a shampoo, and I can still smell it, because that smell was so particular, so nice. It was just absolutely special. We had a bike. I used to ride everywhere on my bike, and then Glad had a bike as well, and we put a baby chair on the front of her bike, and so we carried our babies around on the bike with her as well. So yeah, bike's been part of our lives, and I guess that has something to do with us now. Around about 2004-05, I began to notice that there were things going wrong. She was finally diagnosed with the horrible disease of Alzheimer's. Having lived overseas, I knew that with a bike you can do lots of things. So I had a bike made, a bike chair made. We take it to the beach and ride along beside the beach. And as we do that, we see a lot of people come talk to us, because it's a unique thing. Nobody else has got a bike chair quite like that one. I am determined to care for her every need, every need. You see, God has loved us so unconditionally. And I understand that God has put his love in my heart. And because I realize how much God has loved me, that's how I too can love my lovely wife. She has done so much for me over all of these years. Now she can't, but I can, and I can return her love. And it's a love that, well, to me, means I can do everything for her. She's my princess, I'm her William, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Would you have it any other way? No, not at all. We love each other.
And I'll talk more about how we are happier when we give than when we receive. And he's doing exactly what he promised. He's taking care of her, and he's blessed for doing so. Wow, pretty inspiring message, I think. Well, so let's take a break, and we'll come back. We've got, what do we have, 15 minutes or so? So let's take about 15 minutes. I went a little over. We'll try to get started back about 20 till. That work?
Yep.
Okay.
Back in the kitchen area, we've got treats and drinks and everything, so please go help yourself.
So That was the way that I could breathe, take time for me, and then I am working.
Yeah. And it doesn't take long before you get reset, does it?
Always breaks, it's really good, and breaks for everyone. Because we just get tired for the routine.
So what's your name?
Catherine.
Kathleen.
Catherine. Exactly.
My grandmother's name.
Ah, really? Yes, in Spanish, Catherine.
Okay.
In English,
Yeah.
Catherine.
So, Kathleen.
Yes, and especially because you get out from your comfort zone. You get out from your comfort zone when you struggles. One day my work was talking to me. What? Just come back. That is the solution. I said, no, mommy, no, we have our needs. We need to support her.
So family from where? Okay. So, do you have family here in Israel? So you all have a lot of challenges.
But here with the church, the spiritual life, that better, the challenges are taken in the best way. That when you are alone.
You got a great attitude, I can tell.
Yes, I think, and we talk about many about that.
Well, especially
But I left everything over there. And I'm sure.
oh yes, you are.
But I can work. But I have realized that you say, jobs, no, even the dreams of my parents that they try to push on me, I just say, one day I told them, no, I don't like that stress life. And I have realized when you are, I don't want to be like, how do you say yes, and they say, oh, the tradition is this. But it's not right. Because right we realize that in Colombia, we were not as long, but we were separated, more complex, because we are changing. And in this moment, you change. Yes, and in this moment, when I am taking care of Juliana, taking my free time, and his free time, even, it's better. We can talk more. And he has more, he wants to grow up.
Hi, I'm Tisha.
And 2 weeks
Hi, Brittany,
ago,
nice to meet you.
he told me that he didn't want to go, but I was upset, like, why you?
What kind of dog?
Yes. But then, after some hours, I just say, no, I know what I am in the wrong way, but you need to do it. That is healthy for you. And I don't know that I am selfish. I don't like that you just go. It's like, yes, selfish. That is selfish.
It is more blessed to give than to receive.
Yes, and I told him, you just go tomorrow. Yes, and I told him, go tomorrow. I don't need to try to get that done until next week.
So what I did is I didn't go.
Yeah, because you told you to.
And you say today
That's the way that works.
that yes, enjoy your time, and then you have time together. Yes. Okay, Lori, we hope not. But you have been awesome.
You ain't gonna sleep yet?
And
You're not gonna let us.
then we try to go and you know, and go and
Let me give this to you before I forget about it.
Just love everybody. Go back there. I gave it.
Cowboys keeping their coach?
And then we had a nice
Yeah.
little dinner.
Are you happy about that?
I had my 3 o'clock coffee at like noon, so.
Next weekend, I think, yeah. Are you going? Really? Really?
Thank you for doing this. Yeah.
Just you and both of us, yeah. Present you?
Yeah,
Is that what you said?
I won the Cowboys. Yeah, I'm a fan of them.
Oh. You're the fan of the year for the Cowboys?
Yeah, there's 32 of us. Not one, not one.
Really?
I'm home for.
Oh, you need to be like wearing a badge on that, like, hey,
I do
I'm
have
the
a
fan of
jersey.
the year. Yeah, he has a jersey that says like fan of the year right here.
Captain Morgan episode.
Okay. Huh.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, that would be fun.
That would be fun. Yeah, it's funny, this, we got like the itinerary, all these events that we're going to, and like the first night is like the big part of the announce the actual fan of the year, like the NFL fan of the year, and it's a cocktail party, and of course the fan of the years, all they have to wear are their blue jerseys, but then whoever they're great have to be in cocktail business attire. Like, of course he gets to wear a jersey and I have to dress nice. I bet you're okay with that. I don't really dress in your other casual. Yeah, so I'm like panicking. She said all weekend. Yeah, that's what we're eating all weekend.
So this is funny. One time we had a dinner like that, and Scott said it's just like a little black dress. So I didn't have one, so I wore like nice black and a red shirt, and like it was ball gown, like jewels, and it was like I was.
That, I feel like that's gonna happen
He
to
was in
me.
trouble.
Or you was in big to get this fancy dress and then everyone's gonna be like, leggings, you know? I bet you not. Right. So yeah, it'll be
Wow.
very interesting, because I've never been to
Expect it.
fancy
Yeah.
birthday
Well,
parties.
that'll be the experience of a lifetime for sure.
Right?
Are your seats good, or do you know?
I think they're like third deck.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
I'd just be in the building. It's cool.
Right, I just had to go to the NFL honors
Where did you say it's
on third deck.
What they present the MVP and stuff like
Yeah, and
that.
all that.
So,
I'll be
like,
pumping elbows.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can talk to anybody, but.
Yeah.
not like, I'm sorry.
Have you been to LA before?
Yeah.
So it's nice, like, if you're going to a mall,
We were over there. We were
and
a
it's
couple
like,
years ago.
so there's like the wine gallery,
I mean,
and where you can pour.
I'm not a place
So
I
it's like
don't
in
live.
those strip malls,
I like
in
the
those
more
other,
yeah.
before you even get to the mall.
Okay.
So like, it's not, it's like, you know, there's
Some
like
places go,
Albertsons. and
Yeah.
We went to a lake.
You can never figure out how to get out.
As far as
Yeah,
the-
right, yeah, and it's like.
So we were on the baseline, 4 or
So
5
it's like,
rows
well,
up.
Casper, like, work for.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, just to see how good those guys are. with
store
what they
that
do.
sells, like,
I'm sure you'll
stuff for
feel the
kitchens.
same way.
Yeah, so across from there. Yeah, okay.
Lakers fan?
Okay.
Yeah, you know,
Thanks
I
for the tips, I'm like, oh,
Lakers
well.
were my team
That's
too,
fine.
back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Magic and all those guys.
Yeah, I was thinking back to like teaching in high
I grew
school
up with, so
or Ross or
I still
something.
root for them a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Like,
Yeah, yeah. You know,
always gotten some fancy dresses.
I wasn't the huge,
that's good
like,
to know,
some people
yeah.
were so loyal to Kobe, you know, but I, you know, kind of understood that he was there for once, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But,
When
I
Scott was
think-
engineering,
yeah,
he did that
Magic too,
stuff.
yeah. But man, you have to admire the way that his dedication to
Yeah,
what
see,
he
I don't
did.
have to do
Oh, yeah,
that, so I'm like,
single-minded
oh, great.
dedication.
I don't know now, it's so fan those days.
Were you?
I know, I was thinking, what's that?
Yeah, well,
I thought you said Ryan one.
oh yeah, he was great.
I was thinking.
My whole family is so I get a kick out of watching him with him.
Good at like,
Oh, it depends. My dad is a big college basketball fan.
Oh, are you? Okay,
He loves
it's
to
funny,
say,
we live out in Belgrade, so we always think about
they've
going to
gone
Outlet.
in the turn. He
We
likes
go to
to
the ones
go
here
down.
because, you know, my in-laws come here
So,
too. We always think
I
about
don't, I mean,
it.
we just, I don't know that anybody has
Yeah.
a team so much anymore, we just all wear it.
I don't basketball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I wish they'd make that hoop a little.
you think they need to do that? I mean, there've been some people talking about it.
Travel.
Right,
But yeah,
they do let them,
if you need help or
get away
anything, like,
with
do you
walking
have
all
this
day.
or that?
That's sports.
like to go to a, like, if I go to a game, I like it, but like, to watch it on TV,
It's funny, we've been going to the group on
we
Wednesday
went,
nights, and
we were in Denver
we
this
have a
summer,
group
and
chat,
we
and Pat always texts us about like,
it
who's
was,
coming?
it was a lot of
And
fun.
they're all like, I don't know. And so finally this one's
Yeah,
like, Abby,
sure.
who is everybody?
Yep.
She's gonna be on those numbers.
Yep.
Oh, do you know KBS?
Like the, on the other side.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the Rangers.
Okay, yeah,
Oh, okay. That's funny. Everyone knows everybody here.
Well, I know,
Really?
well, Patrick and Justin.
sure,
I've
sure.
known
They,
Justin
I mean, it was
since
good this year, it just,
we've known each other since we were kids.
Fell
Our
off and
parents,
down.
our parents go to church
Oh,
together.
didn't work out.
Our parents, who-
That's okay.
so her mom,
Yeah.
my dad.
Get used to
No.
this.
Oh, okay.
Well, I shouldn't say no, should I?
She is.
My parents
Messed
lived
up.
in, my
Right.
parents moved
I
in
was
when I
early
was
I was
90s.
born in '96.
Okay.
So my
Okay.
dad used to be
And
a
I was
preacher.
3
But
years
my
old when
mom
I
and
left.
my
Right.
dad
The obvious
kind of
number.
grew up together.
You know, I was in high school. when
Mom
we were-
and my aunt were good friends and stuff. So
Okay.
kind of a funny little
Right.
So
So
I've
you
been
guys are like
married for a
friends
while.
through family.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
were.
You know, I'm pretty
Okay.
casual.
And then
for
our
both.
kids.
You know,
So I
I
was
turned it
oldest
on
with
in college a little bit,
Ashlyn,
but
their daughter Ashlyn and our daughter
the girls
Brian
are always
were
asking,
in
who are you
senior,
going for?
and then their daughter Eliza and our daughter Dawn.
Yeah.
And then we went to the same
That's
school.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Crazy. Small world.
Oh yeah, and then like like Sydney there, we grew up with her
Yeah.
on Bible camp and everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she's Scott's
Sister.
sister, right? Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and Scott. Yeah.
Everybody's interconnected.
Right?
Way too much.
Yeah.
That little crisscross.
Right.
Crisscross little web.
Right? Remember all these were pews.
Right?
Oh yeah, I know. And these were pews in here. Mm-hmm. How did the chairs go?
You sit over there.
You guys didn't always sit here?
No, I'm
Oh, that's funny. I just thought you guys always
Yeah.
sit here. That's funny.
2002 was when we started coming. That was crazy.
There you go.
Heck, I don't remember their own team.
Yeah.
Did you get some coffee?
Nope.
Did you get
All
some
out.
snacks?
Oh, it's all out.
So,
Can I have some sweets?
oh yeah. Doing what?
Not sleep.
Just couldn't sleep.
Sounds like my son. He's always.
So we've always made fun of Sydney and Betty, like when they have caffeine, you can tell. Like, and yesterday Sailor had coffee in the morning and she not like even like at 6 o'clock. So I'm thinking it continues to another generation.
Running in the family.
Yep.
huh?
Yep.
I think Patty's the same way though.
I think she probably, yeah.
Because at the Shepherd's like she was really tired on Friday, but then on Saturday she was just like, oh, and I was like, did you have some tea today? And she's like, yes, I did, and it was caffeinated. I was like, I thought so. Oh yeah.
Pretty strong genetics in that family.
Well, Denali was drinking so much coffee that she was having a racing heart.
Oh, really?
And she was born kind of like a heart murmur,
Yeah.
so we were like really worried. And we were like, maybe we should quit drinking coffee. And the doctor's like, I still think we should put a heart murmur on. So she cut back on the coffee, and sure enough, cut back on the coffee, her heart monitor
Sure.
was totally fine. That was totally it. So
Right.
she'll make like, like the BLM,
Yeah.
strong espresso, and like have a whole cup.
Oh, geez.
Like, not just a little espresso, like, but you drink a lot.
I have never had the coffee. She's never feel coffee.
Yeah, me neither. I never a coffee drinker. Like, if we go somewhere and someone offers to buy it, then I'll get it. But I don't ever go my way for it. It doesn't give me energy like some people.
Yeah, like they made a coffee run the other day at the office last week, and they said, "Do you want us to get you something?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
You just can't have it.
Yeah.
Do you like tea or anything?
Oh my goodness.
None of that stuff does it for me. I don't know.
If you're powering tea, you
Do you really?
know,
Yeah.
cereal. My standard coffee
did, yeah. That's how I got was the ads. I was like, I gotta check these out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
They're very cool. I do have I'm always pulling them up so every now and then I knock them
Yeah.
off. And I'll like go to answer the phone and I'll hit it. It's like fall to the floor. I'm like, okay. But yeah, no, they're not. They're really cool. And you can get like this.
Yeah.
Just like it's so annoying.
Okay, second wind. Come on, Chris. He noticed.
So are you from Idaho Falls too?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My son-in-law and daughter moved out here about 5 years ago. Actually, another circle. My son-in-law used to be sweet on your daughter for some time.
Oh, is that right?
In fact, they met something pretty hard. My daughter, Haley,
Okay.
married my
Okay.
We were gonna wait and let him walk in.
So he was stuck on Haley.
I don't think they're gonna show up.
Yeah. We were gonna let him walk in this morning.
Well, my Haley will love hearing that. You know, I think where I go to all the schools I
Last time we was here, we went up to Chevron, the conference, Carlos Guthrie was here, Jesus was like,
that used to be in Knoxville, that is,
He said,
he's a
Frida,
Lipscomb now.
oh,
He's a master's program.
yeah. So my brother-in-law used to work with him, I think. I'm pretty sure, years ago in Knoxville at Laurel. But it was, I think so. Okay, are we ready? Is it getting late? It's 9:45 for Tina. Yes. It is now. All right, can you hear me? All right, so I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible so you all can split up and answer a few questions without putting us too late. So let's get going. The topic, this last topic for tonight, has to do with this matter of understanding the importance of being best friends. And as we deal with these topics, I always want to begin with what God has to say. So the first is Genesis 2 and verse 18. The Lord God said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." I do an awful lot of grief counseling. And on several times each week, I will help someone who is trying to figure out how to live without this companionship. And it's so very difficult. And that's exactly what God saw when he created Adam. And he said, "I'll create a helpmeet for him." And this Hebrew word, ezer, that this word helpmeet comes from, carries with it the idea of companionship, of having somebody to share life with. Look at this study published by the National Bureau of Research, December 2014, found that the well-being effects of marriage are about twice as large for those whose spouse is also their best friend. In other words, they rated satisfaction with marriage, and when they correlated those responses with the item basically that said, "Is your spouse your best friend?" For those who said yes, they noticed that their satisfaction in their marriage or with marriage was twice what it was for those who did not say they were married to their best friend. Now, that shouldn't surprise us. I don't give that to you to say, "Oh, wow, I can't believe that." No, I gave that to you, to us, for us to realize this is important. So, marriage and dating, why being best friends is important from goodtherapy.org. What's more, there are always ways to resurrect the excitement of falling in love for long-term couples who are true friends. That life gets in the way in the form of kids, mortgages, work, and in-laws should not dictate leaving the excitement behind. It can be revived by taking time regularly for just the two of you to be best friends. There's one reason that I put this slide in here, and that is, I guarantee you, there's several in here tonight who, when I went through the coexistence section a while ago, that you went, "Oh man, that's the way I feel. That's where we are." We have drifted into our own two worlds. And this slide says the good news is you can fix it. You can pull it back together. You can recover that best friend relationship. And best friend attraction lasts longer than physical attraction. Why? Age happens. It just does. If we continue to live, then our bodies and our appearances are not going to be the way they used to be. While marriages involve two people who enjoy being together, the common interest, the easiness and enjoyment of the relationship, these are things that provide a glue that is stronger than physical attraction. Physical attraction doesn't last forever, but a best friend relationship does. Now, I'm going to get a little personal here, and I want to tell a little bit about our story. Because several years ago, when the kids were in junior high school, about that age, Tina and I had become so busy with life and trying so hard to do all the right things. And so I went to her one night and I said, "I want you to sit down. I want to talk to you." And I said, "What do we do just for us that we enjoy doing? What do we do that we look forward to, that we talk about because we have in common?" And she thought for a minute and she said, "I don't know unless it's yard work." And I said, "When the only thing we can come up with that we have in common is cutting the grass, something's wrong." And the truth of the matter is, Tina cut the grass. She loves being outside. And how many farmers do you know who spend a lot of time landscaping their yards anyway? I was out on the tractor. I was out vaccinating cattle. I was doing this, and she would cut the grass, and I said, we've got to do something to fix it. And so I went and got a legal pad, and I sat down at the table, and I said, let's come up with some hobbies or something that we can do together. And she said, I don't have any idea. Why? Because we had grown into our own worlds. And we were trying hard to do a lot of things well. But life did to us what it does to most. And she said, I don't have a clue. What do you think? And I said, the only thing I can come up with is a motorcycle. And you know what she said? You're just using this to get a bike, aren't you? And I said, I'm really not. And in fact, years ago, before our firstborn came, we had an old Honda Silverwing, and I rode it most of the time. And when we found out we were expecting, she said, I'm not riding the bike anymore. And I said, I don't blame you, and we sold it. And so we kept talking, and finally decided that we would give it a try. And we bought an old Honda Goldwing in Atlanta, ironically, from a place in Marietta, Georgia, actually, called Wow Motorcycles. How about that? And we brought that motorcycle home, we trailered it home, and in the first 6 months, we rode it 10,000 miles. Two people that are pretty busy. And we decided that this was for real, and we sold it, and in 2005, we bought a brand new Goldwing. Probably didn't need to financially, but we needed to so that we could learn to become best friends again. Well, 3 years ago now, I guess, we sold our baby. It had 87,000 miles on it. 95% of those miles involved both of us. If you want to see if you can get on each other's nerves, spend a week together this close. And you learn some things, and you learn to be patient, and you learn sometime to bite your tongue. This was a fun trip. You can tell where we were. We had ridden the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Skyline Highway to Washington. All I wanted was a picture in front of the White House. Wanted that for years. We went to the front of the White House, pulled up on the sidewalk. Secret Service ran us off. We went to the back of the White House, and I kept driving back and forth until I saw a guy walking down the sidewalk. And I thought, if we time it just right, I can pull up there, put the kickstand down, ask him to take a picture, jump on it before the Secret Service got there. And that's exactly what we did. I love this picture, but you know what it did? It gave us, for years, something to talk about. It gave us questions like the one Tina has asked me many, many times. When we would be driving down the road, or when she could tell I was stressed, she would say to me, where do you want to go on our next bike trip? And we'd start talking about it, and we enjoyed talking and thinking. And fortunately, we rode 97,000 miles without any accident or near accident as far as we know. We dodged death for several years. Now, I'm not telling you need to go out and buy a motorcycle. And in fact, I always have men come up to me and say, thank you, I've been trying to get my wife. Except on one occasion where I had a woman come up to me a couple years ago and said, thank you, I've been trying for years to get my husband to get a motorcycle and he won't. And I told her, I said, that's the first. My point is, you've got to purposefully come up with something that can be fun and common for both of you. But what are challenges to keep two people who have grown into coexistence from being best friends? Well, we've talked about this one, and we've talked about this one. We've talked about how easy it is to take our relationship for granted and how that can cause us to go in separate directions. And this one happens all the time. After you've been married 15 or 20 years, are your hobbies the same? Oh, no. Are they supposed to be? No, not really. Except we have to find some commonality that will bring us back together. When you started dating, did you date somebody you had nothing in common with? You had nothing you could talk about? No, there were some things. And this one we'll talk about more. But being on different spiritual levels, where spirituality is way more important to one than the other. Now, I'm not going to stand here tomorrow and tell you you ought to be at the same place in your faith. Or you ought to be in the same place in your walk with God. That's not realistic too. We'll talk about how we can work on those different levels to make them, to help our marriage to be what it ought to be. But it does oftentimes get in the way. And what's the biggest challenge? I'll just sum it all up and say, we are busy. We are busy. Life pulls husbands and wives, who especially are mothers, in different directions. It's just what happens. And we started out going everywhere together, doing so many things together, and it just seems like the longer it goes, the more we wind up here. Do you agree with me? Isn't that just kind of the way it happens? Sure it is. And so we have to realize it and purposefully bring those two back together. So I want to offer some suggestions to help spouses to be best friends. First of all, you're going to have to sit down at the table, or better yet, I'm going to ask you to do it tonight before you leave in the exercise, to stop and talk about what things you have in common, what things could you have in common, what things do we do that help us to be best friends, that we look forward to doing together, that we look forward to talking about, that cause us to be interested. We're not going to be friends with people who have nothing in common with us. And that's what a lot of marriages feel like. And by the way, it doesn't have to be something that costs money either. I'm not suggesting this has to be something that costs a lot of money. Oftentimes, financial trouble only makes things worse. So don't think I'm suggesting that. Number two, be interested in what they are interested in. If it's important to someone who is so special to me, doesn't mean I have to love it as much as they do, but it means I need to show interest in it. Now, I told you I'm going to try not to be too personal, but Tina gets aggravated because our farm is named England and Son Farm. And when Carter was at home, he would work with the cattle and help rake hay and do things, but he's in Alabama now and busy with two sons and at that stage in life. And I've got a better farm hand anyway, and that's Tina. She will help me fish. She'll drive the tractor and rake hay. She'll even help me cut calves when I need to. Now, if you don't know what that means, ask somebody. Why does she do that? Because she loves doing that? Not at all. Because she knows it's important to me. Now, how big a deal is it to me that she does that for me? It's a big deal. And what does it make me want to do? Well, if she's walking down Main Street in Bozeman, Montana, and she says, "Do you mind if we go in this woman's store?" And there are a lot of them, I found out today. My response is, sure, as long as they've got a chair.
Did they?
Some of them did. In fact, I even commented to two girls working. I said, "You all are the smart ones. You've got a waiting room for the men." She said, "That's exactly what it is." But you see the point. The point is, if it matters to her, it needs to matter to me. If it matters to him, it needs to matter to you. That doesn't mean you've got to enjoy it like they do, but it creates commonality. Number 3, find common interest. Number 4, you got to treat each other like best friends. I want you to think about who your best friend is outside of your marriage. You know, and men oftentimes don't have best friends outside of family. We have a lot of acquaintances, and in fact, I believe that we are so busy now, people don't have best friends oftentimes anyway because they become so busy. They have a lot of acquaintances, but they don't have really close friends. But if you've got a close friend, Your close friend is not somebody who's disrespectful to you, not somebody who's unselfish with you, not somebody who treats you coldly, but somebody who's interested in what you're interested in. They are kind, considerate. When you have some difficult something going on, they're glad to help you with it. Why? Because they care that much. We've got to do the same thing in marriage if we're going to have best friend relationships. And number 5, and I'm going to talk about this one, every step of the way, from here until the end of our seminar sessions tomorrow, respect. Respect. We must treat each other with respect. And I'm going to go ahead and throw something in to plant a seed, and that is one of the things that I'm going to ask you all to do is to be open and honest enough with each other that if you feel like the other one is being disrespectful, that you're willing to tell them, I feel like you're disrespecting me right now, and here's why. None of us want to be disrespectful to our spouses. We don't get married saying, I'm going to put them down, I'm going to be hurtful to them. But I see over and over and over again in marriages that are okay and in marriages that are in trouble, that there are things that are said that are hurtful. And if I'm real with you, and I will be, I'll tell you that that happens way more from the males to the females. Not being intended. And I'll talk more about this as we go. But I want to plant some seeds. This whole matter of I must treat my spouse with respect. And if I'm not, I want to know it because I don't want to do that. And those are things we need to change. We're not going to be friends with anybody who's disrespectful to us. We're also not going to be best friends with people that we don't spend time with. So spend time every day, and we'll talk more especially about the praying thing tomorrow. And number 7, brag on each other. Sincere praise. Find ways to say, I appreciate you for. You mean so much to me. I love the way you, and we'll talk more. Number 8, tomorrow one of our topics is openness, honesty, transparency. You're not going to be best friends with somebody who's not honest with you. We're not going to be best friends with somebody who hides things, who's deceiving with us. And in fact, I say many times each week in one situation or another, it is impossible to have a good relationship with anyone of any type of relationship without complete honesty. It's impossible. If you're an employer and you got people that work for you and they're not honest with you, how are you going to feel about them? Or if you work for somebody who's not honest with you, if you're a teacher and you got kids at school that are dishonest, or if you're a student and you got teachers, you cannot have a good relationship with anybody without having honesty. You also can't have a good relationship or a best friend relationship without communication. Communication that involves good listening. We'll talk more about this. Be intentional in it. Those special marriages that are beyond the norm don't come without effort. Now, one more thing before we begin the exercise, and then I'll tell you what it involves. Tina and I oftentimes work with young couples. And in fact, we haven't done it in a while now. COVID has changed several things. But we do something we call 8 weeks with 8 couples. And we'll have 8 young couples, and we'll spend 8 weeks with them going through different topics. And when we talk about finding time for them to enjoy each other in a best friend relationship, the young mothers always look at us like we're nuts. Are you kidding me? That, 5 minutes without somebody tugging me stuff is what comes out in that discussion. And they oftentimes will look at us and they will say, you don't understand. And we will respond to them by saying, oh, yes, we do. We understand. That's why we're telling you, you have to find time to do this. All right, so in your packet, you've got exercise number 1 entitled Improving Our Friendship. And what I'm going to ask you to do is go out and Scott, where? They can go, you can divide off in here. Where else?
anywhere except that big multi-purpose room. Most everybody here knows what church facilities are for and what they're like, so turn on the lights anywhere you want to go. So there's room, that corner, there's a conference room in the far corner, there's a couch, a couple couches, it would be nice. You could go upstairs if you want to. Yeah, just, it's your home.
I know it's getting late, and I don't want to push that. And even if you just go home from here and do it, but I beg you to do it. Take the time to answer these questions. When's the last time we've spent together with our children or family doing something that we both enjoy doing? What do I do with my spouse that contribute to a best friend relationship? And I want to ask you to do these first two questions individually without asking each other. And then work together on number 3. What things do we do that we should do more often, or what new things could we do together that we both will enjoy and will give us commonality and times together to look forward to, anticipate together, and to talk about with mutual interest. All right. Purpose of this is to help you while we're in the mood to stop and think about how can we do a better job of finding time to be best friends. All right, and that's the second session tonight. We'll begin in the morning at 9, right? And we'll take up a third topic. So let's end this part with a prayer tonight, and then you all go wherever and work on those real quickly, and then go home and put them in place. Dear God, thank you for tonight. Thank you for this church, for the other churches that are represented. Thank you for each person who's here tonight to work on marriage being the way you want it to be. Help us to do that. This is our prayer in Jesus' name, and amen. All right, you're dismissed. Yeah, packets there on the table. Thank you. Chris, right?
Yeah.
Well, so you can go home and tell her I said whatever you want to. Will she be here tomorrow? Yeah, well, be careful. Don't go too far. Use it as you need to.
That's fine. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Yeah, have a good.
Yeah, see you morning. We see.
I'm the one that drags my feet on that one. But we do lots of other hobbies, but she totally does. I'm married in Italian. I've lived in Italy for a while.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, so our house is this mix of Whitman, Montana, and refined years. That's all.
Yeah, I don't even know what that looks like.
Come on by house. You can see. You got dead animals' heads, and then you've got pictures of the Colosseum.
Yeah, I would tend to live in your house.
Yeah. You guys have a good one.
Good night.